There comes a moment in every woman's life when heaven stops whispering and starts calling her by name. A moment when the weight you've been carrying begins to vibrate with purpose, when the battles you thought were punishments reveal themselves as preparation. And if you're listening closely, your spirit will feel the shift. Because there is a line, a holy line, a destiny-defining line, and heaven has chosen you to cross it. Not someone stronger, not someone louder, not someone who looks more qualified. You can feel it. Something deep inside you is pushing, stretching, awakening. You're not being broken. You're being summoned. There is a sacred confidence that enters a woman's life the moment she realizes she is not moving through life by accident. She is not wandering, drifting, or surviving randomly. There is a divine intention woven into her story, one that has been unfolding long before she ever took her first breath. When heaven chooses a woman, that choosing does not begin the day she feels strong. It begins long before, in moments she didn't even recognize as spiritual, in seasons she believed were breaking her, in chapters she thought were forgotten. Heaven's choosing reaches into the deepest parts of her life, into places no one else sees, gathering every wound, every tear, every battle, and transforming them into evidence that she was set apart for something greater. Heaven chooses a woman not because she stands tall, but because she keeps standing. Not because she has never failed, but because failure could not stop her. Not because she has the loudest voice, but because even in her quiet moments, her heart still whispers, God, use me. The choosing of heaven is not based on perfection. It is anchored in purpose. You were selected not because you have everything together, but because heaven placed something inside you that is meant to change the world around you. This means the moments when you felt overlooked were actually moments orchestrated for your protection. The times you felt invisible were times heaven was preserving you. The seasons that felt like silence were seasons where heaven was preparing you. When heaven chooses you, it chooses all of you, your scars, your weaknesses, your unspoken fears, your hidden strength. Heaven does not look at you the way the world does. The world measures ability, but heaven measures availability. The world looks for perfect credentials, but heaven looks for surrendered hearts. The world praises polished people, but heaven calls ordinary women and places extraordinary assignments upon them. You may think you are too broken for God to use, but heaven sees a vessel shaped by experience, strengthened by pain, softened by compassion, sharpened by trials. You may think you're behind, but heaven sees a woman right on time. Heaven has personally chosen you for this moment. Not yesterday's version of you, not the future version you are still becoming, but you exactly as you are today. Every flaw, every mistake, every doubt, every uncertainty, God factored all of that into his plan and still said, daughter, I choose you. This is what separates divine calling from human approval. People choose you when you seem ready. Heaven chooses you long before you ever feel ready. People look for confidence. Heaven looks for willingness. People see your present. Heaven sees your destiny. There comes a shift in a woman's spirit when she finally understands that she is walking in a story written by God. When she realizes that every valley she survived was a sign that heaven has plans for her life. When she sees that every door that closed was directed by a God who needed her to turn toward the path he prepared. When she recognizes that every heartbreak, every disappointment, every delay was shaping the woman who now stands ready to rise. Heaven's choosing is not random. It is strategic. It takes every part of your story and aligns it with your assignment. Heaven has been watching you long before you ever paid attention to heaven. It watched you forgive when you could have fought back. It watched you love deeply even when you were the one hurting. It watched you hold your family together with hands trembling from exhaustion. It watched you pray when you didn't have strength and hope when you didn't see answers. Heaven saw those moments and decided they qualified you, not because you were perfect, but because your heart remained open. There is a reason the enemy fought you so hard. It wasn't your past he feared. It was your future. It wasn't your weakness that intimidated him. It was your potential. Hell recognized your calling long before you did, which is why your battles were fierce, why your nights were heavy, why your journey felt harder than others. Darkness always tries to suffocate the women heaven has chosen. It attacks early, it attacks often, and it attacks deeply. But the very fact that you survived what was sent to break you is the clearest evidence that heaven's hand has been on you since the beginning. You are chosen not because you were strong, but because God was not willing to let your story end in weakness. You are chosen not because you had the answers, but because God wanted to reveal his wisdom through you. You are chosen not because you were fearless, but because God knew your faith could grow into courage. Heaven chooses the unexpected, the underestimated, the overlooked, the ones who never fully saw themselves until God spoke. And now heaven is declaring over you, this is your time. This is your moment. This is your season. Not because life feels perfect, but because God has aligned something in the unseen to call you forward. You are chosen to rise, chosen to break cycles, chosen to walk in purpose, chosen to carry light into dark places. And heaven is standing behind you, reminding you that everything you need is already inside you. Every woman comes to a point in her life where she can feel a shift happening within her spirit, a moment when something invisible yet undeniable rises to the surface. It is the moment when she steps into the awareness that she is standing before a holy line. This line is not drawn by people, circumstances, or culture. It is drawn by heaven itself. It marks the border between the woman she has been and the woman she is destined to become. It is the spiritual threshold between survival and purpose, between hiding and stepping forward, between living small and embracing the fullness of who she was created to be. And every chosen woman must eventually stand before this line. This holy line is different for each woman. For some, it is the fear that has followed her since childhood. For others, it is the shame she has carried from past seasons. For some, it is a relationship that keeps her tied to an old version of herself. For others, it is a mindset that tells her she is not enough. This line may take the form of insecurity, guilt, doubt, or a system that was designed to keep her silent. But regardless of the shape it takes, it is always the same in the spirit. It is a boundary heaven is now calling her to cross. This line is sacred because it represents transformation. It is where heaven meets earth inside a woman's heart. It is where the old identity begins to collapse and the new identity begins to rise. It is where God whispers into the depths of her soul, daughter, step forward. You were born for more. Every woman who has ever carried destiny within her has had to walk up to this holy line and decide whether she will stay on the familiar side or step into the unknown where God is calling her. And the truth is, most women feel fear when they reach that line. They wonder if they are strong enough, worthy enough, ready enough. They feel the weight of their history pressing against them, trying to remind them of every reason they should turn back. The enemy becomes loud at the line because crossing it threatens the territory he has guarded for years. He tries to convince her she is too broken, too late, too flawed, too tired, too ordinary. But heaven's voice is louder. Heaven says, you are chosen, you are able, you are prepared, you are appointed. The holy line is where a woman's excuses expire. It is where destiny demands a response. It is where she must choose to remain in what is comfortable or to rise into what is called. A holy line is not simply a moment. It is a mandate. It is heaven saying, I trust you with this next season. It is heaven saying, you have outgrown where you've been. It is heaven saying, step forward and watch me move. Crossing this line is not about being perfect. It is about being willing. It is not about having all the answers. It is about obeying the one who does. It is not about feeling powerful. It is about walking into the power that meets you on the other side. For every woman who steps across her holy line, a new dimension of strength awakens. A fresh anointing falls. A deeper purpose reveals itself. Many women spend years praying for change without realizing that the change they desire is waiting on the other side of the line they fear to cross. This is the line where Ruth left her old land and walked into her destiny. It is the line where Esther stepped from silence into boldness and changed a nation. It is the line where Hannah's tears turned into a prophetic breakthrough. It is the line where Mary chose surrender and became the vessel of a miracle. Every great woman of God has stood before a holy line at some point in her story, and every one of them had to cross it by faith. What makes this line holy is not what is behind it, but what is ahead. On the other side is purpose, healing, identity, restoration, authority, joy, courage, and calling. On the other side is the woman you have prayed to become. On the other side is the life heaven designed for you. And although the step may feel small, the shift in the spirit is enormous. When a woman crosses her line, the atmosphere around her changes. Her voice changes. Her posture changes. Her future changes. Her family changes. Destiny opens because obedience opened it first. Every woman reaches this line when heaven knows she is ready, even if she does not feel ready herself. And the beauty of this moment is that God does not stand behind her pushing. He stands ahead of her calling. He stands on the other side of the line with his hand extended, inviting her to step into a future designed with her name written across it. The line is holy because God himself has sanctified the moment. It is not a test of strength, but a test of faith. This line is not meant to intimidate you. It is meant to elevate you. It is the divine indicator that you have reached the threshold of transformation. You are not standing at a dead end. You are standing at the beginning of your next chapter. You are not standing before a barrier. You are standing at a birthplace. The holy line is where destiny begins to breathe. And woman, heaven is calling you to cross it. Not next year, not when life gets perfect, not when you feel stronger, but now. Because this is the moment you were born for. This is the line you were created for. And when you step across it, the woman within you that heaven designed will finally rise. There is a powerful truth every chosen woman eventually discovers, though often later than she wishes. The obstacles she faced were never meant to destroy her. They were designed to prepare her. What looked like chaos was shaping her. What felt like abandonment was forming her. What seemed like punishment was actually training for the destiny heaven planned for her. But because pain rarely comes with explanation, most women assume their struggles mean God is distant or disappointed. The truth is the opposite. The presence of obstacles in your life is evidence that heaven has a calling on you so great. It demanded preparation strong enough to carry it. Every mountain you climbed, every valley you crawled through, every night you cried yourself to sleep was not random suffering. Heaven was allowing you to be refined, tested, strengthened, and anchored. Not to weaken you, but to make you unshakable. Not to silence you, but to teach you the tone of resilience. Not to break you, but to build a foundation inside you that would hold the weight of the woman you are becoming. You were not being punished. You were being prepared for a level of purpose that required depth, courage, and maturity. There are some assignments heaven gives that cannot be carried by fragile hearts. There are some doors God wants to open for you that require a strength forged in fire. There are some people he wants you to lead, help, or influence, but you can only guide them because you survived what they are still facing. Your obstacles were not roadblocks, they were classrooms. Every heartbreak became a lesson. Every betrayal became a teacher. Every delay became a training ground. Every wound became wisdom. Heaven was writing strength into your spirit through experiences you once prayed to escape. Look back on your life and notice something. You outlived everything that tried to end you. You rose from situations that could have buried you. You walked through seasons where most people would have quit, but something inside you refused to collapse. That something was the hand of God preparing you. If heaven wanted to punish you, he would have left you where you were. But instead, he pulled you through, kept you breathing, held you together, and carried you forward when you did not have the strength to move. That is not punishment. That is purpose at work. Preparation often feels like pain because growth stretches the soul. The woman you were could not become the woman you are called to be without shedding old layers, old beliefs, old circles, and old patterns. Some losses were necessary. Some endings were intentional. Some hardships were heaven's way of removing what would have held you back in the next season of your life. God will sometimes let people walk away because they cannot go where he is taking you. He will allow certain doors to close because they were too small for the destiny he is building in you. He will allow certain prayers to go unanswered because he has something greater waiting on the other side. When you felt like God was silent, he was actually working behind the scenes, building you into a woman who can carry weight, authority, and calling with grace. When it felt like nothing was happening, everything was being rearranged in the unseen. Heaven does not waste pain. Every tear watered something. Every struggle planted something. Every season strengthened something. You were being equipped layer by layer, moment by moment, trial by trial. And now, as you stand at this new threshold of destiny, you are realizing that the things you thought would kill you ended up teaching you how to live with boldness. The obstacles did not break you. They broke what was breaking you. They shattered fear. They dismantled dependence on others. They crushed insecurity. They tore down doubt. They stripped away everything that would have kept you small, silent, or stuck. God allowed the fire not to destroy you, but to reveal the strength he placed inside you long before you knew you carried it. A woman who has been forged in adversity carries a different authority. Her presence changes rooms, her voice breaks chains, and her faith intimidates darkness. If you had lived an easy life, you would not have the depth you have now. If everything had gone the way you planned, you would not have the wisdom, compassion, or discernment that now flows from your journey. Your obstacles created a version of you heaven can trust, strong enough to lead, humble enough to serve, faithful enough to follow, and wise enough to recognize God's hand, even in the dark. Those seasons were not punishment. They were heaven's investment in you. God was preparing you for conversations you have not yet had, platforms you have not yet stepped on, people you have not yet met, and responsibilities you have not yet carried. And now, when heaven calls you forward, you do not step forward weak. You step forward equipped. You do not step forward fragile. You step forward fortified. You do not step forward wondering if you can survive. You step forward knowing you have already survived what was meant to destroy you. The obstacles were preparation for the holy line you are now approaching. Every struggle was strengthening your legs to take this step. Every storm was training your heart to trust. Every disappointment was redirecting you toward destiny. You were not punished. You were prepared. Heaven was shaping a warrior out of a wounded woman, forming a leader out of a broken one, and giving birth to a calling through the labor pains of your past. And now heaven is saying, daughter, everything you survived has prepared you for this moment. Step forward. I have equipped you. There comes a moment in every chosen woman's journey when God makes it clear. The place you are going cannot hold everything you are carrying. Not every mindset, not every memory, not every relationship, not every habit, and not every version of you can cross the holy line into your next season. Destiny is spacious, but the road to it is narrow. And the narrow path requires separation. It requires surrender. It requires letting go of weight that does not belong to the woman you are becoming. This is not God taking things from you. This is God freeing your hands so you can carry what belongs to your purpose. When heaven prepares to elevate you, it first reveals what must be released. Sometimes that release feels like loss, but in reality, it is divine pruning. A gardener trims branches not to hurt the plant, but to make room for new growth. In the same way, God asks you to let go of certain people, patterns, or perspectives because they cannot thrive at the altitude He is taking you to. The version of you that survived last season cannot succeed in the next. The strength you need ahead requires leaving behind the things that slowly drained you, discouraged you, or distracted you. Some women try to cross the holy line carrying old wounds, hoping they will heal themselves. But pain becomes heavy luggage when you try to take it where it was never meant to go. Old hurt will keep you tied to old seasons. Old betrayals will keep you expecting disappointment. Old fears will whisper that stepping forward is dangerous. God is not asking you to deny what hurt you. He is asking you to stop dragging it into places it no longer belongs. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is deciding that the past will no longer define who you are on the other side of the line. Not only wounds must be left behind, so must certain relationships. This is one of the hardest lessons for a chosen woman because she wants to take everyone she loves with her. But destiny is selective. The people who supported your past are not always the ones assigned to your future. Some individuals were meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. Their purpose in your story has already been fulfilled. Holding on to them past their expiration date creates emotional weight that weakens your spiritual momentum. God will not let someone who cannot respect your calling control your next chapter. So when He removes them, it is protection, not punishment. The holy line also requires you to leave behind old versions of yourself. The insecure you, the doubting you, the shrinking you, the apologizing for your existence you, those versions cannot make the crossing. The woman God is raising you into is bold, confident, faithful, and surrendered. She walks with authority, not approval addiction. She trusts God more than she trusts fear. She carries identity, not uncertainty. That woman cannot emerge until the old one is released. This kind of release is internal, quiet, and powerful. Not dramatic, but deeply spiritual. It begins with a decision. I will no longer let who I was limit who I am becoming. Sometimes what you need to leave behind is simply a habit or pattern that kept you small. Maybe it is how you speak to yourself. Maybe it is the way you minimize your gifts. Maybe it is the belief that you don't deserve good things. Maybe it is the comfort of staying inside a safe routine that never forced you to grow. God is calling you into a new dimension, and new dimensions require new discipline. The life you dream of cannot be lived with the habits you settled for. Crossing the line means leaving behind the behaviors that kept you spiritually and emotionally stagnant. One of the most powerful things God teaches a chosen woman is this: release is not always painful. Sometimes it is relief. Sometimes the weight you have been carrying was never yours. Sometimes the responsibility you felt for others was never assigned by God. Sometimes the guilt you held on to was never meant to follow you. When you let go of what cannot cross with you, you feel lighter, calmer, freer. Your spirit can finally breathe again. The holy line is a place of release before it becomes a place of crossing. This letting go is not easy. It requires faith to loosen your grip on what feels familiar. It requires trust to walk away from what once brought comfort. It requires courage to detach from what feels safe but keeps you stuck. But God is a gentle guide. He never asks you to set something down without placing something greater in your hands. On the other side of surrender is strength. On the other side of obedience is blessing. On the other side of letting go is becoming. There is a reason God does not allow everything to cross with you. The things you cling to may be the very things blocking your next level of anointing. You cannot step into authority while holding on to insecurity. You cannot step into purpose while carrying bitterness. You cannot step into elevation while tied to the weight of old seasons. Something has to be laid down for something greater to rise. And here is the truth heaven wants you to understand. Letting go is not losing. It is positioning. It is aligning your life with God's plan instead of your pain. It is preparing your spirit for the weight of destiny. It is choosing expansion over limitation. The holy line is not just a transition point, it is a purification point. What cannot serve you cannot cross with you. What cannot grow you cannot go with you. What cannot honor God cannot accompany you into what he is calling you to. The woman who will cross the line is lighter, stronger, clearer, freer. She carries only what belongs to her calling. And heaven is whispering to your spirit, daughter, release what I did not assign. Step forward with open hands. What I have for you requires room. There comes a moment in every woman's journey with God where she realizes that the line she is being called to cross is not merely symbolic. It is spiritual, holy, and deeply personal. Keynote 4 declares that every woman chosen by heaven must understand that her transition into a new season is not a casual step, but a sacred crossing. This crossing demands courage, identity, and spiritual clarity. It means leaving behind the familiar ground where fear once controlled her, where doubt whispered against her calling, where past wounds attempted to define her. Crossing this holy line is about stepping into the territory God set apart for her before she ever took her first breath. But the truth is, the line doesn't move. You do. God draws it, God defines it, but you must step over it. And that step changes everything. Many women wait for perfect timing, perfect strength, or perfect circumstances to appear before they move forward. But heaven never required perfection, only obedience. A holy line is drawn at the place where faith begins and fear ends. It is drawn where you decide that destiny matters more than comfort. When a woman crosses this line, something eternal shifts. It is not a moment of emotion. It is a moment of alignment. You step into who God always intended for you to be. Some lines you cross without noise, without applause, without witnesses, but heaven sees and hell feels the impact. Because when a woman steps into her divine identity, she becomes unstoppable. Crossing this holy line often means leaving behind versions of yourself you have outgrown. You can't cross it carrying the weight of old expectations, the opinions of people who misunderstood your calling, or the lies the enemy tried to attach to your identity. God doesn't invite you across so you can drag your past with you. He invites you to cross because he prepared a place on the other side where your past cannot survive. The woman you were is not the woman you are becoming. The line marks the boundary between who you used to be and who heaven is raising you to be. It marks the moment when your voice begins to match your assignment, when your faith becomes bigger than your fear, and when your spirit becomes stronger than your circumstance. Every holy line requires trust. God doesn't reveal everything ahead of time. He doesn't hand you a full explanation. He gives you a word, a whisper, a nudge, a stirring in your spirit that says, daughter, step forward. And sometimes that's all you have. But that's all you need, because God never asked you to cross alone. The same God who calls you forward walks with you through the crossing and stands waiting for you on the other side. You move by faith, but you never move abandoned. You move trembling, but you move upheld. And when your foot touches that holy ground on the other side, you realize why the enemy fought you so fiercely, because you stepped into territory he hoped you would never reach. Some women never cross because they underestimate what God put inside them. They believe the lie that they are too weak, too broken, too unqualified. But heaven knows what you carry. Heaven knows the authority in your voice, the anointing in your spirit, the endurance in your heart. Heaven knows the miracle tied to your obedience. That's why heaven chose you, not because you were the strongest, not because you were the most knowledgeable, not because you were the most perfect, but because you were willing to believe again, willing to hope again, willing to fight for the calling on your life, willing to say yes even when you were trembling. Heaven doesn't operate by human qualifications. Heaven operates by divine selection. And when you are chosen, the line you cross carries weight. Crossing a holy line also disrupts generational patterns. You don't step over just for yourself. You step over for every daughter, every woman, every generation behind you. You break things that tried to travel through your bloodline. You stop curses that ran unchecked. For decades, you silence lies spoken over your mother and her mother before her. When you cross, you carry the authority to build a new legacy, a new future, a new identity for those who will come after you. A woman who crosses a holy line becomes a cornerstone for generations yet unborn. She becomes the testimony someone else needs. She becomes the evidence that God still raises women from ashes, still places crowns on broken heads, still opens doors no demon can close. And perhaps the most powerful truth is this: the holy line you are called to cross is not random. It is not accidental. It is not optional. It was designed specifically for you. Heaven chose you for it. Not the woman you admire, not the woman you compare yourself to, not the woman who seems stronger or more spiritual. You, because heaven knows what you carry. Heaven knows the oil on your life. Heaven knows the battles you survived, the tears you cried, the prayers you whispered in the dark. Heaven knows your resilience, your sensitivity, your compassion, your fire. Heaven knows that when you cross this line, something in the spiritual realm will shift permanently. You are crossing into purpose. You are crossing into identity. You are crossing into authority. You are crossing into the woman God intended you to be. And when you cross, you don't go back. You don't apologize for your calling. You don't shrink to make others comfortable. You don't explain the anointing on your life to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stand where God placed you. You move as God leads you. You speak as God fills you. Because once you cross a line drawn by heaven, you step into ground that belongs to you. Holy ground, chosen ground, purpose ground. And from that moment forward, nothing can stop the woman God has awakened. There comes a time in every woman's spiritual journey when she realizes that heaven did not choose her because she was flawless. Heaven chose her because she was willing. Keynote 5 speaks into the truth that every calling carries a cost and every divine assignment demands endurance. When a woman is chosen to cross a holy line, she must understand that resistance will rise, not because she is weak, but because she is powerful. The enemy never attacks what isn't a threat. A woman who carries heaven's mandate becomes a target for opposition, misunderstanding, spiritual warfare, and internal battles. But the resistance is not a sign that she is unqualified. It is confirmation that she carries something valuable. When God marks a woman, she carries a divine weight that changes atmospheres, breaks chains, and shifts destinies, and hell feels it long before she does. Endurance is the proof of identity. You do not endure because you enjoy hardship. You endure because you know what you carry is worth the fight. When God calls a woman to a higher assignment, he strengthens her spirit long before he enlarges her territory. He builds resilience in her heart before he opens doors in her life. He teaches her how to stand when everything around her is trying to collapse. So many women think endurance is a punishment, but endurance is training. It is heaven's way of preparing you for the future you prayed for. You cannot step into great purpose with fragile faith. You cannot carry divine strategy with a trembling spirit. Heaven strengthens you because heaven is preparing you for impact. And the truth is this: endurance is not loud. It is not glamorous. It is not seen or celebrated. Endurance is waking up one more time when yesterday drained you. It is continuing to believe when disappointment tried to silence your hope. It is praying again when the answer still seems distant. It is showing up when fear whispers that you are not enough. It is trusting God when all you have is a promise and no evidence. Endurance is not built in the spotlight. It is built in the quiet rooms of obedience, where only God sees you. And the woman who chooses to remain faithful in the unseen places will be trusted with influence in the visible ones. Many women pray for purpose, but run from the process that builds them into the vessel God can use. Purpose is not handed to you finished. It is shaped in you through stretching, testing, refining, and trusting. Endurance teaches you how to walk through fire without losing your worship. It teaches you how to face storms without abandoning your faith. It teaches you how to stand tall even when your heart feels heavy. And with every step, every tear, every trial, God is shaping something inside you that cannot be shaken. You become a woman who endures because you have been forged by heaven. There is also a powerful truth woven into endurance. The woman who endures becomes spiritually dangerous. The enemy is terrified of a woman who refuses to quit. A woman who keeps walking, keeps praying, keeps believing, keeps rising. She carries an authority that cannot be stolen. She becomes the type of woman who walks into a room and darkness retreats. She becomes the type of woman who speaks and chains begin to weaken. She becomes the type of woman whose faith inspires others to stand when they feel like falling. Endurance births influence. Endurance multiplies impact. Endurance strengthens your spiritual voice. But endurance must be paired with identity. Many women endure battles they were never meant to fight because they don't yet know who they are in Christ. But when a woman understands her identity, chosen, appointed, anointed, protected, empowered, she stops enduring the lies of the enemy and starts enduring toward the purpose God created her for. There is a difference between suffering under attack and standing under assignment. A woman chosen by heaven knows she is not fighting random storms. She is fighting strategic opposition because her destiny matters. The moment she embraces her identity is the moment she stops being intimidated by the battle and starts being empowered by it. Endurance also transforms how you see yourself. You begin to look back at the battles you survived, the heartbreaks, the failures, the betrayals, the loneliness, and instead of shame, you see evidence. Evidence that you are stronger than you thought, evidence that God never abandoned you, evidence that your spirit carries more fire than fear, evidence that heaven truly chose you. And the more evidence you collect, the more confidence you walk in, not confidence in your own strength, but confidence in the God who sustained you. And this is where the miracle happens. Endurance becomes revelation. You begin to understand that the very battles you resented were the ones preparing you the most. You begin to see that the nights you cried were the nights heaven whispered identity into your spirit. You realize that the woman you are now, bold, awake, spiritually alive, would not exist without the storms you overcame. Endurance reveals the warrior in you, not the warrior you imagine, but the warrior God designed. Finally, endurance positions you for promotion, not earthly promotion, not applause, not validation, but divine promotion. There are levels in the Spirit that only open to those who endured the process without surrendering their faith. Heaven trusts the woman who kept standing. Heaven promotes the woman who kept believing. Heaven elevates the woman who kept walking through fire with worship still in her mouth, because she has proven that she is not moved by circumstance. She is moved by calling. This is the woman heaven chooses, not the perfect woman, not the loudest, not the most noticed, but the one who endures, the woman who refuses to give up, the woman who knows the line before her is holy and that crossing it requires spiritual strength. She steps boldly because she knows heaven walks with her. And when she crosses, she becomes a living testament that endurance is not suffering. It is sacred preparation for destiny. There is a moment in every woman's walk with God when she realizes that obedience is not just an action. It is a spiritual posture, a sacred alignment between her heart and heaven's voice. Keynote 6 reveals the truth that when heaven chooses a woman, God will speak to her in ways that require immediate trust, not full understanding. Obedience becomes the gateway to miracles, breakthroughs, and divine assignments she could never access through logic alone. A chosen woman must learn that obedience is not always comfortable, convenient, or clear. In fact, it often feels like stepping into uncertainty with nothing but God's whisper holding you upright. Yet every time she says yes, heaven responds with grace, strength, and supernatural provision. Obedience is the training ground for spiritual authority. Before God places a woman on a platform, he teaches her to listen in the quiet places, Before he sends her into influence, he roots her in intimacy. Many want the assignment but resist the alignment. They desire the miracle but avoid the instructions. But a chosen woman learns early that divine power flows through obedience. The most anointed women are not the loudest, the most talented, or the most visible. They are the ones who obey quickly, quietly, and consistently. They don't negotiate with God. They don't argue with his leading. They don't wait for circumstances to make sense. They move when God speaks, and that movement opens doors human hands could never unlock. Obedience is also the purest expression of trust. When God gives a woman a direction, he is not testing her intelligence. He is strengthening her faith. He wants to see if she trusts him enough to move without a map, to walk without seeing the entire path, to believe without understanding every detail. Many women want supernatural breakthroughs, but are afraid of supernatural instructions. Yet every biblical story of transformation begins with a moment of radical obedience. Abraham left his land. Moses lifted his staff. Esther stepped before the king. Mary said, "Let it be unto me." None of them had all the answers. What they had was a heart that said yes, and God is still searching for women who respond the same way. A woman chosen by heaven must also learn that obedience often goes against logic. God will ask her to forgive when she has every reason to hold on to pain. He will ask her to love when she feels empty. He will ask her to give when resources are low. He will ask her to speak when her voice is trembling. He will ask her to move forward when everything around her says stay. Obedience stretches you beyond human reasoning and into divine thinking. It breaks the limitations of the natural world and ushers you into the supernatural. Because obedience is where heaven and earth meet, where your human yes collides with God's eternal plan, creating miracles that defy explanation. Obedience also redefines identity. Every time a woman obeys God, she discovers another layer of who she truly is. She learns that she is braver than she thought, stronger than she imagined, and more spiritually equipped than she realized. She begins to see that obedience reveals the warrior within her, the prophetess within her, the intercessor within her, the leader within her. Obedience awakens gifts she didn't know she carried. It unlocks anointings she never saw before. It activates authority she didn't know belonged to her. And with every step of obedience, she becomes more aligned with heaven's blueprint for her life. But obedience is not easy. It demands sacrifice. It requires the death of pride, the surrender of control, and the humility to follow rather than lead. It means letting go of plans you built, dreams you crafted, and timing you expected. A chosen woman must learn to release her grip on her own understanding. She must trust that God sees what she cannot see, knows what she cannot know, and prepares what she cannot prepare. Many blessings are delayed not because they are denied, but because obedience has not yet been embraced. Heaven is ready. He is waiting for your yes. Another profound truth is that obedience breaks spiritual barriers. There are generational curses, emotional prisons, and demonic strongholds that can only be dismantled through obedience. When a woman obeys God, she is not just shifting her life, she is shifting her entire bloodline. Her obedience becomes the turning point for generations. It becomes the testimony that her daughters and granddaughters will build upon. It becomes the spiritual foundation her family stands on. A woman's obedience carries impact far beyond her lifetime. Obedience also positions a woman for divine timing. So many doors remain closed because the timing is not matched with the obedience required. God does not delay to punish, he delays to protect. When a woman obeys God's leading, she walks into opportunities that are fully prepared, relationships that are aligned, and seasons that are matured. Obedience ensures that when the blessing arrives, she is ready for it. She is strong enough to sustain it, wise enough to steward it, and humble enough to handle it. And finally, obedience seals a woman's destiny. It draws a line in the spiritual realm that declares, this woman belongs to God. Hell recognizes obedience. Heaven rewards obedience. And the world is changed by obedient women. When heaven chose you, it wasn't simply to bless you, it was to move through you. Your obedience becomes a vessel for miracles, a doorway for revival, and a pathway for God's glory. A woman who obeys God is a woman who becomes unstoppable, unshakable, and undeniably chosen. There comes a point in every chosen woman's journey where she must understand that heaven never calls her to cross a holy line so she can remain who she has always been. Keynote 7 declares that when heaven selects a woman, transformation is not optional. It is inevitable. God does not pull a woman into a new season just to decorate her old identity. He brings her across a divine threshold so he can reshape her, refine her, elevate her, and reveal the version of her he authored before the foundations of the world. This transformation is not cosmetic, it is spiritual. It is not surface level, it is foundational. When heaven chooses you, change becomes sacred. It becomes the very tool God uses to prepare you for the destiny he wrote with your name on it. Transformation begins with disruption. God often interrupts the familiar rhythm of your life to awaken the divine potential sleeping inside you. He shakes what is unstable so he can establish what is eternal. He closes doors you thought you needed so he can open ones that align with your assignment. He removes people who can't journey with you into the next season. He exposes lies you believed about yourself so he can rewrite your identity with truth. This disruption is uncomfortable, but it is holy. It may feel like everything is falling apart, but in reality, everything is falling into place. Heaven knows that the woman you will become cannot emerge without shaking the woman you used to be. Transformation also requires surrender. You cannot carry God's purpose with hands still holding on to what he asked you to release. You cannot step into your divine identity while clinging to fear, insecurity, or the version of yourself shaped by past wounds. A chosen woman must allow God to peel away layers that life placed upon her, layers of shame, rejection, self-doubt, comparison, and survival mode thinking. These layers once protected her, but now they limit her. Transformation happens when she says, God, remove everything in me that is not from you. And God, being the gentle refiner he is, begins his sacred work. He does not destroy you, he rebuilds you. He does not diminish you, he strengthens you. He does not erase your story, he redeems it. A transformed woman sees herself differently. She stops looking through the lens of failure, fear, or what others said about her. She looks through heaven's lens. She recognizes the strength in her spirit, the authority in her voice, the calling in her bones. Transformation renews her mind until her thoughts match God's truth. She starts thinking like a daughter, speaking like a warrior, walking like a leader. What once intimidated her now bows under her feet. What once silenced her now pushes her forward. The boundaries that once held her become stepping stones to higher ground. This is what happens when heaven touches a woman's identity. She becomes unstoppable. Transformation not only changes how a woman sees herself, it changes how she moves. She stops operating from fear and begins operating from wisdom. She stops reacting out of pain and starts living out of purpose. She stops waiting for permission and starts walking in authority. She stops surviving and starts building. Her steps become intentional. Her decisions become spiritual. Her relationships become purposeful. The transformed woman no longer fits into the environment that once confined her. She is not who she was, and she refuses to shrink back into old patterns just to make others comfortable. She carries a new posture, holy confidence, humble strength, unwavering faith. There is also a profound truth about transformation. It is ongoing. God does not transform you once. He transforms you continually. Each new season requires a new version of you. Each new assignment demands a deeper level of maturity. Each new elevation calls for a stronger level of faith. Transformation is the process that prepares you for longevity in your calling. Heaven will not place you where your character cannot sustain you. So God shapes you, molds you, stretches you, and refines you, not to break you, but to build you into a vessel capable of carrying glory. Transformation also has a ripple effect. When a woman is transformed, everything connected to her shifts. Her household feels it, her children feel it, her marriage feels it, her friendships feel it, her workplace feels it. Transformation in one woman can birth transformation in an entire family line. She becomes a carrier of light in dark places. She becomes a breaker of cycles, a restorer of hope, a builder of faith. People around her begin to change, not because she preaches at them, but because she radiates something divine. Her transformation becomes a testimony others can touch. But perhaps the most powerful truth about transformation is this: the enemy cannot defeat a woman who has been transformed by the hand of God. She is not easily shaken. She is not easily deceived. She is not easily discouraged. She knows who she is and who she is. She has walked through fire and discovered that flames cannot consume a woman protected by heaven. She has faced storms and realized that storms cannot drown a woman anchored in God. Transformation gives her spiritual resilience that no attack can dismantle. She becomes a living witness that God doesn't just save, he rebuilds, he restores, he resurrects. When heaven chose you, it wasn't only to use you, it was to transform you, to take the broken pieces and craft a masterpiece, to turn wounds into wisdom, battles into strength, and tears into oil. You are not crossing the holy line as the same woman who approached it. You cross it transformed, renewed in spirit, strengthened in faith, awakened in identity, and fully aligned with the destiny God prepared for you. This is the power of a woman chosen and transformed by heaven.